The ACC might be one of the most loaded quarterback conferences in the nation, as in today's video we're going to take a look at all 14 starters, and I'm going to introduce you to who they are, how they've done so far, and where I have them ranked amongst all 14 of them. The video is pretty self-explanatory, and be sure to let me know your rankings and your thoughts down below, and let's just get started. At number 14, we're going to have the Duke Blue Devils and their new starting quarterback, Riley Leonard. He's more than likely going to win the job, as he will replace Gunnar Holmberg. The 6'4" quarterback came from Fairhope, Alabama, and was ranked as the number 47 quarterback in the class of 2021. Last year, in very limited action, he threw for 381 yards and 2 touchdowns, and did actually show a bit of flash. While I think Duke football is going to be horrendous next year, Leonard has an opportunity to surprise some people, as I guarantee you pretty much every one of you watching this video doesn't even know who he is. Georgia Tech football is a complete dumpster fire right now, and the quarterback spot does not have a lot of clarity. We'll end up having a quarterback battle, which will come down to Jeff Sims and Zach Gibson. Sims was a big-time blue-chip quarterback coming out of high school, and in 2020, he actually showed a decent amount of flash. He threw for 2,000 yards and had 13 touchdowns, but struggled keeping the ball in possession as he had 13 picks. He would regress horrendously in 2021 though, as he would only throw for 1,400 yards with 12 touchdowns and 7 picks. Sims has a lot of potential, but he has yet to live up to it. The other option is Zach Gibson. Gibson was from Alpharetta, Georgia, and was not a big name on the recruiting trail, which is why he ended up at Akron. He wouldn't get an opportunity to really start until 2021 though, as he threw for 1,262 yards with 10 touchdowns and not a single interception. He did that all while only starting 5 games, and honestly, this battle is going to come down to the end, and I think Gibson has a real chance to win. Up next, at number 12, we have Virginia Tech quarterback Grant Wells. Wells is from Charleston, West Virginia, which is why it was not surprising when he stayed in state and played for Marshall. He'd redshirt in 2019, but he would break out in 2020. He led the Thundering Herd to a breakout 2020 season as he threw for 2,000 yards with 18 touchdowns. 2021 would become even more impressive as he threw for 3,500 yards and 16 scores. His only issue, though, was throwing interceptions, as he had 13 of them. Virginia Tech, on the other hand, had problems with Braxton Burmeister, and they decided to bring Grant Wells in from the transfer portal. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback, but he will have to fend off Jason Brown, who started a couple games for South Carolina last year. In my eyes, give me Wells, and he has an opportunity to move up even higher on this list. North Carolina will finally have to move on from Sam Howell, and they are going to have 2 guys who are going to fight for the job. The first is Jacolby Criswell, as he is the more dynamic runner of the two, and the guy I think will finish as the backup. The guy we're really going to talk about here is Drake May. He is the brother of former North Carolina basketball star Luke May, and Drake was at one point a 5-star recruit and was committed to play for Alabama. He would eventually flip to Mack Brown at North Carolina though, and last year he got an opportunity to play in 1 game. May seemingly has unlimited potential, and some wonder if he could win more games than Howell, but for now he has to fight off Criswell and win the job. I have him ranked 11th, but he has a real opportunity to climb much higher on this list. Pittsburgh will have to replace their superstar quarterback Kenny Pickett, and the transfer they brought in is going to do a pretty good job at that, I think. Keaton Slopes was a late riser coming out of Arizona, and as a true freshman would start in place of the injured JT Daniels. He went on to have a historical freshman campaign, but that was really the best part about it. He regressed as a sophomore and got even worse last year, as he only had 11 touchdowns. He decided he wanted to find a new place to play, and he'll transfer across the country to Pittsburgh, where he will more than likely be the starting guy. While some wonder if Slovis will do well or not, I think he's going to be average, if not above average, and maybe he can be even better, but for right now, he's ranked 10th. The next one is kind of controversial, as at number 9, I have Clemson. Dj Yonggiole was a big-time 5-star coming out of California, but after showing a glimpse of the future in 2020, he was extremely disappointing in 2021. He had more interceptions than touchdowns, and he could seemingly get nothing done. While his name will have a lot of hype, he doesn't have the stats to back up being ranked very high. There's also a battle going on, as true freshman 5-star Cade Klubnik will likely get an opportunity at the starting nod, and if he wins the job, his ceiling is much higher than DJ's, but for now, I think DJ wins that job, and he's ranked 9th, and until they find a better option, Clemson might continue their relative downfall. At number 8, we enter into our next territory of already established starting quarterbacks, and that first one is Jordan Travis. After originally going to Louisville, Travis would transfer to Florida State in 2019. He wouldn't get an opportunity to play until 2020, where he finished with a disappointing 1,056 yards and 6 touchdowns. In 2021, he started pretty much the entire year and threw for 1,539 yards with 15 touchdowns through the air and 500 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. He is truly a dual threat quarterback, and I think his ceiling is pretty high, but can he finally put it all together, or will he once again be underwhelming? That I don't know, but for now, he's ranked at number 8. In my eyes, Garrett Schrader is going to be the best quarterback since Eric Dungey, and he has an opportunity to put his name on the map in 2022. After taking over a couple weeks into the season, Schrader threw for 1,445 yards with 9 touchdowns in the air, and then another 781 yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground. He brought a new level of excitement to the Syracuse offense I have not seen since Dungey left, and he is super athletic and has a super high ceiling, but unfortunately he plays for Syracuse, so I don't know if he'll really be that good, and if he can even move up much more on this list. But either way, Schrader deserves a little more respect than he's given. The next player we need to talk about is Tyler Van Dyke. After D'Eriq King went down with an injury, Van Dyke would take over and would have an extremely impressive 2021 season. He threw for 2,931 yards with 25 touchdowns in the air and only 6 interceptions. He showed a kind of flash in the Miami offense that we have not seen since Brad Kaya, and Van Dyke is also a potential first-round pick for next year. This is all based on potential though, and while he had a great 2021 season, I'm cautiously optimistic for 2022, and I think he's going to be good and could move up the list a lot, but for right now, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit, and I have him ranked at number 6. Despite how boring Louisville football has been over the last few years, Malik Cunningham is one of the better kept secrets in the nation. For a while he went by Michael, now he goes by Malik. Whatever it is, Cunningham is the real deal. He began starting in 2019, where he combined for nearly 2,500 yards and 27 touchdowns. 2020, many expected him to break out even more, and he had a pretty solid year as he finished with over 3,000 all-purpose yards and 27 touchdowns. Last year, despite Louisville being very disappointing, Malik had an incredible year. He threw for 2,941 yards and 19 touchdowns and had 1,031 yards and 20 touchdowns on the ground. I swear no one is talking about this guy enough, and Malik has the opportunity to become one of the best quarterbacks in the conference if he can put it all together and if Louisville can just become somewhat decent or fun to watch. Coming out of New Jersey, Devin Leary was a pretty big deal on the recruiting trail. He eventually decided to go to NC State, where he'd first get the opportunity to start in 2019. He threw for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns that year, and then in 2020, he would come back. He threw for 890 yards and 8 scores before he got hurt, and 2021 would be the year he put his name on the map. Last year, he threw for 3,433 yards with 35 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the nation. He threw for a lot of scores, led NC State to a great year, and didn't turn the ball over. That, combined with his 6'2" frame, Leary is now being talked about as potentially becoming a first-round pick in the 2023 draft, and many see NC State as a team that can potentially compete for the ACC championship. We're going to have to wait and see, but Leary has an extremely high ceiling, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching him. Some would argue that Phil Jurkovec should not be ranked 3rd in the conference, but people also forget he was hurt last year. Coming out of high school, Jurkovec was a borderline 5-star and decided to go to Notre Dame. After not playing, he eventually decided to transfer and join Jeff Hafley at Boston College. He would start right away in 2020, throwing for 2,500 yards and 17 touchdowns, while having a couple of great games and putting that Boston College offense back on the map. Expectations were extremely high in 2021, but right as the season began, it was done. After throwing for 900 yards and 7 touchdowns, it was announced that Jurkovec would miss the entire year with an injury, and he's had a lot of time to rehab and get better. That's why a lot of mock drafts have him as a first-round pick next year, and I think this Boston College team has an opportunity to break out, and Jurkovec could have an extremely good year. Brennan Armstrong is one of the few left-handed quarterbacks in the game of football, and coming out of Shelby, Ohio, he originally pledged to PJ Fleck at Minnesota, but would later flip to Virginia. After the Bryce Perkins era came to an end, Brennan Armstrong would take over in 2020. He threw for 2,000 yards with 18 touchdowns and 11 picks, and no one really knew much about him. In 2021, though, he would put his name on the map. While Virginia was not at the top of the ACC, he threw a total of 500 passes for 4,449 yards and 31 touchdowns. To be honest, looking at those numbers, I feel like he should have thrown for a couple more touchdowns, or the team should have won more games, but you cannot deny his stats. And as of right now, I have him as the 2nd best quarterback in the conference, but there's a real chance he moves down and finds himself in the middle of the list. Or maybe I'll be wrong. I think we'll just have to wait and see. This may not be a super popular selection, but Sam Hartman is the best quarterback in the ACC next year. After originally being Will Greer's backup in high school, Hartman took over in 2018 as a starter. He emerged as a true freshman, but eventually Jamie Newman took his spot in 2019 before Hartman would retake over in 2020. He had 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns in the 2020 season, which was just alright, but then in 2021, he would put his name on the map. He threw for 4,228 yards, 39 touchdowns, and only 14 interceptions, while leading Wake Forest to the ACC championship in one of their best seasons in school history. He decided to come back with an extra year of eligibility, and you cannot deny the kind of numbers he's had, and Wake Forest is seen as a dark horse playoff contender next year with him. I'm not really sure what NFL scouts think of him, but when you put up those kind of numbers, I bet he'll get an opportunity there as well. So yeah, today's video we ranked all 14 of the ACC starting quarterbacks, and I hope you guys learned a lot and enjoyed it. Let me know your own list down below. Let me know what I got right and wrong, and who your favorite quarterback is. Be sure to let me know down below. Smash that like button for the algorithm, subscribe if you are new, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.